Hidden costs that destroy $100,000 goals. You've set a goal to hit $100,000 in net worth, and you've done the math. You're going to save $1,200 a month, invest consistently, and in about 6 or 7 years, accounting for investment returns, you'll cross that six-figure threshold. You've got a budget, you've automated your savings, you're making solid money. Everything looks good on paper. But then months turn into years, and somehow the number isn't climbing the way you expected. You're saving, sure, but it feels like you're running on a treadmill. Money keeps disappearing into places you didn't account for, expenses you didn't see coming, costs that don't show up in your budget but somehow drain thousands of dollars a year from your wealth-building potential. My name is Jack, and I spend way too much time analyzing the gap between what people plan to save and what they actually save, specifically studying the hidden costs that silently sabotage wealth-building goals without people even realizing they're being sabotaged. And what I've discovered is that the visible expenses, rent, car payment, student loans, those aren't usually what derails someone's path to $100,000. It's the invisible ones, the costs hiding in plain sight that you don't budget for, don't track, and don't notice until you look back and wonder where all the money went. Because here's what makes these costs so destructive. They're not dramatic. They don't feel like financial mistakes. They feel like normal life, like just handling responsibilities, like the cost of being an adult. But they compound into tens of thousands of dollars over the years it should take you to reach $100,000. And that's the difference between hitting your goal and staying stuck. So, if you've been working towards six figures in net worth, but your progress feels mysteriously slow despite your discipline, or if you're about to start this journey and you want to avoid the traps that catch everyone else, this is for you. Because understanding these hidden costs isn't just about awareness. It's about protecting your wealth-building trajectory from forces that most people never see coming. The convenience tax nobody calculates. Let's start with probably the most insidious hidden cost. The convenience tax you're paying across dozens of small decisions every week without even thinking about it. It's not dramatic purchases, it's the $3 upcharge for delivery instead of pickup. The $7 you pay for lunch at the office cafe because you didn't bring something from home. The $15 Uber instead of the $3 Subway because it's raining. The $4 coffee from the shop next to work because making it at home seemed like too much effort this morning. Each instance feels trivial. What's $4? What's $7? It's basically nothing, right? Except you're making these convenience choices 8, 10, 12 times a week. And when you actually calculate it, you're spending $200 to $400 a month on convenience premiums. Small markups you're paying for minimal time savings or comfort. That's $2,400 to $4,800 a year. Over the 5 to 7 years it should take you to reach $100,000. That's $12,000 to $33,600 in direct spending, or more when you account for investment returns you're missing. You could be 20 to 30% of the way to your goal just from money currently disappearing into convenience charges. And here's why this is so destructive. You don't see it as spending. You see it as just life, just getting through the day, just being practical. But you're literally paying thousands of dollars a year for conveniences that save you maybe 15 minutes each. I tracked this for myself once and was horrified. Between food delivery markups, convenience store purchases instead of grocery shopping, ride shares instead of public transit, and all the other micro-convenience choices, I was spending nearly $350 a month. $4,000 a year on convenience that I hadn't budgeted for, hadn't tracked, and honestly hadn't even noticed. The fix isn't becoming miserable and inconvenienced all the time. It's being selective. Choose convenience intentionally when it genuinely matters, but default to the non-convenient option most of the time. Pack lunch 4 days a week instead of 0. Make coffee at home most mornings. Take transit, i.e. when weather permits. Each small default change saves hundreds annually. The maintenance creep of better stuff. Here's a hidden cost that catches people off guard. As your income grows and you buy nicer things, your maintenance costs grow exponentially, and nobody warns you about this. You upgrade from a basic apartment to a nicer one. Cool, the rent is higher, you budgeted for that. What you didn't budget for is that the nicer place has higher utilities, requires nicer furniture to not look weird, is in a neighborhood where you feel pressure to dress better, and somehow generates higher costs across multiple categories. You upgrade from a basic car to something nicer. You budgeted for the higher payment. What you didn't budget for is the premium gas it requires, the higher insurance, the more expensive maintenance, the pricier tires, and the fact that you now care about keeping it perfect so you're paying for detailing and protecting the paint. This is maintenance creep, the hidden ongoing costs that come with upgrading your stuff. And it's shockingly expensive because it's spread across so many small categories that you don't see the total impact. A friend upgraded from a $1,200 apartment to an $1,800 apartment. She budgeted for the $600 difference. What she didn't budget for was the $80 increase in utilities, the $1,200 she spent on better furniture so the nice apartment didn't look shabby, the $50 monthly parking fee, the higher renter's insurance, and the lifestyle inflation of living in a fancier neighborhood. The apartment cost her about $850 more per month than the rent increase alone. Same thing happens with cars, with clothes, with electronics, with everything. The purchase price is visible. The ongoing elevated costs are invisible until you're hemorrhaging an extra $200 to $400 a month, and you're not quite sure where it's going. Before you upgrade anything, calculate the total maintenance creep cost, not just the purchase price difference. That nicer apartment might actually cost $10,000 more per year when you factor everything, not just the $7,200 rent increase. And suddenly it's not such an obvious choice. The social obligation spiral. This one is psychologically complex but financially devastating. The hidden costs of maintaining social relationships and meeting perceived obligations. Someone's getting married. There's a gift, probably travel, maybe a bachelor or bachelorette party. Someone's having a baby, shower gift, visiting costs, ongoing birthday presents for a kid you barely know. Someone's birthday dinner at an expensive restaurant where you split the bill evenly even though you ordered the cheapest thing. Holiday gift exchanges with extended family. Colleague retirement parties. On and on. None of these feel optional. They feel like basic human decency, like maintaining relationships, like being a good friend slash family member slash colleague. But they're costing you thousands of dollars a year that you didn't budget for, and that directly compete with your $100,000 goal. And the insidious part is that as you get into your late 20s and 30s, everyone around you is hitting these life milestones simultaneously. It's not one wedding a year, it's 5 or 6. It's not one baby, it's a baby boom in your friend group. The social obligation costs spike right when you're trying to build wealth. I went through a phase where it felt like every weekend was a wedding or baby shower or birthday trip. I calculated that I spent over $4,500 in 1 year just on social obligations. Gifts, travel, dinners, events. That's $4,500 that didn't go toward my $100,000 goal, and I couldn't even remember half the events 6 months later. The solution isn't becoming a hermit who skips everything. It's being strategic about which obligations are actually important versus which ones you're doing out of guilt or social pressure. It's setting budgets. $50 max for wedding gifts, not $150. It's declining destination bachelor parties you can't afford. It's being honest that you can't make every event. Your real friends will understand. And the people who won't understand weren't up to worth the financial sacrifice anyway. The broke friend subsidy. This one's uncomfortable but needs to be said. If you're the high earner in your friend group, you're probably subsidizing other people's lifestyles in ways that are destroying your wealth building. It's picking up tabs because you know they can't afford to split it fairly. It's always being the one to cover the Uber because everyone else forgot their wallet. It's lending money that never gets repaid. It's planning activities around their budget but somehow still ending up paying more than your share. And it happens so gradually, so naturally, that you don't see the pattern. You're just being a good friend. You're just helping out. You're not going to make a big deal about $20 here or $40 there. But over months and years, you're transferring thousands of dollars from your wealth building to subsidizing consumption for people who aren't making the same sacrifices you are. And that imbalance is keeping you from your goals. I had a friend group where I was making about $30,000 more than everyone else, and I unconsciously became the group ATM. Always covering, always lending, always being generous. I finally tracked it and realized I was spending about $200 a month on subsidizing this friend group, $2,400 a year flowing out of my wealth building. When I set boundaries, suggesting cheaper activities, being willing to let awkward money conversations happen, stopping the lending, Some people were understanding and some relationships faded. But my savings rate increased, and I got closer to my goals. The hard truth: you can't build wealth for other people and yourself simultaneously. If your friends can't afford to do things without you subsidizing them, you either do cheaper things or you accept that you're choosing those relationships over your financial goals. Both are valid choices, but make them consciously. The expertise gap. Tax. Here's a hidden cost almost nobody talks about: the money you're losing because you don't know what you don't know about financial optimization. You're paying more in taxes than necessary because you don't understand tax-advantaged account strategies. You're leaving employer matches on the table because you didn't realize how they work. You're paying higher interest rates because you didn't know to negotiate or shop around. You're invested in high-fee funds because you don't know what expense ratios are. This isn't your fault. Financial literacy isn't taught, and the system benefits from your ignorance. But the cost is real and substantial. Most people are probably leaving $2,000 to $5,000 per year on the table through suboptimal financial decisions they don't even know they're making. I paid thousands in unnecessary taxes in my 20s because I didn't understand I could contribute to traditional IRAs and reduce my taxable income. I paid high fees on investment accounts because I didn't know to look for low-cost index funds. I paid more interest than necessary because I didn't know to negotiate or refinance. The expertise gap tax might be costing you $25,000 or more on your journey to $100,000, and you'll never notice because you can't miss what you never knew was possible. The fix is investing time in financial education. Read books, take courses, follow credible financial content. Understand the basics of taxes, investing, credit, and money management. The ROI on financial literacy is enormous. The aspirational spending trap. This hidden cost is particularly brutal. Buying things or experiences because they represent who you want to be rather than who you are. And the gap between aspiration and reality is expensive. You buy the premium gym membership because you aspire to be someone who works out daily, but you go twice a month. You buy expensive cooking equipment because you aspire to be a great cook, but you still order takeout constantly. You buy books you'll never read, courses you'll never finish, gear for hobbies you don't actually pursue. Each purchase feels like an investment in becoming a better version of yourself, but you're actually just funding a fantasy while your real behavior stays the same. And those aspirational purchases add up to thousands of dollars a year spent on props for a life you're not actually living. I bought a $1,200 road bike because I was going to become a cyclist. I rode it maybe 15 times total over 2 years before selling it for $400. That's $800 lost to aspirational spending. Multiply that across other categories: fitness equipment, musical instruments, professional development courses I never finished, and I probably spent $5,000 on aspiring to be someone I wasn't. The fix? Prove the behavior before buying the equipment. Want to be a runner? Run in whatever shoes you have for 3 months first. Still running? Then buy good running shoes. Want to learn guitar? Rent or buy a cheap one first. Still playing after 6 months? Then upgrade. Don't buy your way into an identity. Build the identity through behavior, then buy the tools that support it. The opportunity cost blindness. Finally, the most subtle but perhaps most expensive hidden cost. You're making major financial decisions without considering opportunity cost, and it's destroying your wealth building. You take that $8,000 vacation because you deserve it, without considering that $8,000 invested would become $25,000 by retirement. You buy that $4,000 designer bag without thinking about what that money could grow into. You spend $12,000 on a wedding when you have $15,000 in total savings. Every dollar you spend is a dollar that can't compound. And when you're working toward $100,000, every major discretionary expense is directly competing with your goal. But most people don't see this trade-off clearly. They see, can I afford this, rather than, is this worth more to me than future wealth? This opportunity cost blindness leads to spending tens of thousands on things that provide temporary satisfaction while delaying your $100,000 goal by years. And the brutal part is, you won't realize the true cost until much later, when you're wondering why compound growth isn't working for you like you thought it would. I see people make these trades constantly. A $15,000 car upgrade when their current car works fine, a $25,000 wedding when they're trying to save for a house, a $3,000 weekend trip when they have $8,000 in total savings. Each decision makes sense in isolation, but destroys the possibility of reaching $100,000 in any reasonable time frame. The shift is developing acute awareness of opportunity cost. Before any major purchase, calculate what that money would become if invested instead. Then decide if the purchase is worth more to you than that future wealth. Sometimes it will be, but usually it won't. The path to clarity. Look, the reason these hidden costs are so destructive isn't that any single one will derail you. It's that they compound. The convenience tax plus the maintenance creep plus the social obligations plus the friend subsidy plus the expertise gap plus the aspirational spending plus the opportunity cost blindness. Together, they're siphoning off $15,000 to $30,000 per year from your wealth building. That's why people who think they're saving $1,200 a month end up with $400 a month actually building wealth. The other $800 is disappearing into these invisible costs that don't show up in budgets but absolutely show up in outcomes. The good news is that awareness creates the opportunity for change. Once you see these patterns, once you understand where the money is actually going, you can make different choices. You can eliminate the convenience tax, avoid maintenance creep, set boundaries on social spending, stop subsidizing others, learn financial optimization, skip aspirational purchases, and consider opportunity costs. And those changes, they don't just help you reach $100,000, they establish financial patterns that will serve you for life. Because the discipline required to reach your first 6 figures is the same discipline that builds your first million. So, audit your spending. Find your hidden costs. Protect your wealth building from these invisible drains. Because the difference between reaching $100,000 and staying stuck isn't usually about income or discipline. It's about seeing the costs that everyone else is blind to.